Welcome, Spartans, to Mission Debrief. We're playing every mission in the mainline Halo video game series in chronological order, discussing our experiences and sprinkling in a smattering of lore along the way.
Whoa.
If you'd like to play along and have your thoughts read on the show, email us, podcastevolved@gmail.com, or drop us a tweet, podcastevolved on Twitter. If you like what you hear and want to support the show, visit Evolved on Patreon. This episode, we're debriefing the distress calls and Easter eggs located in the Connections area from Halo Infinite. I'm your host, Colin Perkins, alongside David Arnold.
Hello, everybody.
And Krista Brown.
Fuck these Marines.
Krista Brown.
Last mission was the second of our open world area missions. We covered the outposts. While they were retaking forward operating bases, John and the Weapon discovered a number of key banished locations that were being used to strengthen their presence on the ring. Chief loaded a bunch of Marines into a Razorback and blew them all to hell. Now, in our third mission, our third episode covering this area, we are covering the distress calls and all of the fun little Easter eggs. After retaking the area's fobs and dismantling multiple banished outposts, Master Chief and the Weapon turn their attention to saving the remaining Marines that are scattered about the island. The duo find a number of oddities along the way. Date of the game, the longest day, May 28th, 2560. Now, we've had all these distress calls around, and if you're playing on your own, you've probably gone around and saved some of these Marines. But they packed 15 of these bad boys into this initial area. Well, I guess
that's a lot of Marines.
Area.
A lot
of Marines. It's a lot of things to do. I don't know. How did you feel about looking at this big list of Marines to save, David? Are you excited about that, or were you kind of eye-rolling? Like, I gotta do this.
Well, because of how I play open world game, and because of how I knew I was going to play this game, I did everything on the first island before moving on. So I'd done a bunch of them already, and I'm not going to say like it got old, but definitely during this part of the map, it got old because it's a huge area and they scatter it with stuff to do, but it gets kind of repetitive because there are a lot. Like 15's a lot, and that's not even. I can't even remember how many in total. Is there 40-something, 30-something Marine distress calls in the game? Like, that's a lot.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I don't have the list in front of me. No, this is the most. I think there's maybe it gets up to in the high 20s, 30s. Yeah. But there's a big chunk right now.
Like I've said before, I really wish this was built. There was more to this mechanic than just rescuing them. I really wish you were building up a force at the Reverie at Post Tremonius, and that there was more to this than just going there. But I know we're not going to go through them all. But there are some of them that I actually do really like. I love the environments. I like the setup of them. Some of them are pretty fun. The rest of them are just like, oh my god, like the ones that are the most fun are the ones where like you're jumping in on a fight, as opposed to like the ones that are just rescuing dudes that are captured. I don't know. I wish they were separated and there was more to do in each of them, but whatever. They are what they are.
Yeah, it does actually. It looks like there's 20. If Halopedia has them all listed, there's 15 here. There were 4 in the previous area, and then we just have one more to do in the future.
I could have sworn there was more than that in the whole game.
I think there's just so many, and this is the biggest land chunk, of the open world area. So maybe that's it. I don't know. Krista, what are your thoughts on saving these Marines?
Definitely, if you're just doing this, like back to back to back to back, it definitely gets a little bit old. Yeah. It's one of those things that if you were going to go through and just collect these just to get them done, it's kind of like a put on Netflix or a YouTube video and just kind of do it.
Yeah.
I think the best way to tackle these is to just, and it's the way I did it when I first played the game. You're going to a fob or an objective or something like that, and you just kind of like, to get to the objective, you just bounce from event to event to get there. And then you do that, and then that's kind of how I did it. And then all the outliers I would just mop up towards the end of the game when I had, a Banshee or the Wasp or whatever, because it's just easier to get around.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're just grinding out these, it's a little annoying, but if you're kind of just stumbling upon them while you're trying to get to another objective, they're interesting.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, because the first time I played it, when I didn't get 100% my first playthrough, I went back and I had a wasp, and I just went through, and all these encounters are pretty easy when you have that wasp.
Yeah.
You can just kind of go around shoot everybody. Every once in a while, there's a enemy that can like shoot you down with a skewer or something like that. But for the most part, they're pretty easy. So it's a whole new dynamic when you do the cleanup, you do the mop up at the end of the game versus when you're doing it in the moment. In the moment, I don't know. I guess my perspective on the thing is it's really I guess it's doing two things, maybe a third that we can think of, but just doing two things. So it's giving you like Halo experiences on the ring, right? It's outside of the missions and the outposts. It's like, okay, I can stumble across this little Halo firefight, and that's fun, right? Like it's fun to play Halo. It turns out. So here's a little encounter for you. Okay, so from my perspective, all the UNSC distress calls and saving the Marines is doing two things, maybe a third if we can figure that out. But it's really, it's giving you the Halo experiences outside in the open world, outside of like the outposts and the missions, right? Like they're giving you this big giant area to go and explore and find things and whatnot, but they need to give you encounters along the way too, right? And I guess turns out playing Halo is fun, and fighting Banish is fun, and saving Marines is fun.
Oh my god. Spoilers, Colin. Can't tell the people when to have fun. Okay, they make their own decisions whether or not Halo was fun. How dare you, sir?
So, but I think 15 of these in this one area it does suck that fun away, right? Because then it becomes more of like a chore. So like the first couple were cool and interesting, like, oh, this is a neat little thing, and I'm saving these Marines, and then and I don't know why they stuffed 15 into this one open world area. Maybe because it was the biggest and they could. Or maybe like story wise, it made sense to like save all these Marines here because they're going to use them in your, encounters later on down the road. I don't know. But yeah, like seeing this big giant checklist, this specifically felt kind of like almost like a Far Cry thing, right? It's like, oh, I got to do all this stuff, And I guess so the first reason was because, Halo's fun. The second reason is because of the Valor system, right? And every time you save a squad of Marines, you get 30 more Valor, and that goes to unlock things at the FOBs. And if you do all of the distress signals, save all these squads of Marines, and do all of the propaganda towers, and have completed everything else up until this point, you will reach exactly 2,000 Valor. And what do you unlock at 2,000 Valor? That Scorpion.
Sheila.
Sheila. You get that Sheila.
We've said it before, but I feel like this is super early in the game to give you that. But it's probably also maybe a good point. But like, okay, the tank is terrible in this game. This map is not built for the tank. So I guess they do give it to you early because maybe you'll actually use it. But you'll probably use it once or twice.
Yeah. And I think that's something we'll talk about in later episodes, is like, if you want a Scorpion, this is the place to use it because it's the biggest chunk of land, right? But you can't even get to it until you do everything in this area, right? Or you can get it later on when you're like cleaning up stuff, but it just feels weird. Maybe this is a conversation for like the last episode, our recap, but getting the Scorpion as like as your reward for doing everything, it just feels weird because then you've done everything here and then you move on to the next portion of the story. So anyway, I do find some of the encounters interesting. A lot of them are not interesting. So the majority of them are, well, I guess there's two different types of encounters. There's a handful of them that are where the Marines are captured. And so they have, what do they call it? Is it restraint generator or something like that? So they're captured and they're being held by a squad of banished. And so you roll up into so for example, I guess I'll just talk about the first one. So Cobra Squad is the one kind of the farthest on the north. There's captured Marines there. There's a ghost in the center. There's elites and grunts around. So you clear out those elites and grunts however you want to. You free the Marines by shooting the restraint generator. They can join you, or you can wait and save them later. We've talked about earlier in the episodes that they can't take damage until you free them. So you decide if you really want to have them help you with the fight. The earlier fights aren't that difficult, but sometimes they do come in handy. So you free them, and then there's some drop ships that come in. So I think in that first encounter there's 2 Phantom drop ships that come in. Like I said, there's a ghost, so if you're too slow, you can either fight against the ghost, or if you're fast, you can go get in the ghost. There's a ghost that drops, so it's like an interesting little mini encounter, I guess. And then so that's the captured ones, and then the other ones are where the Marines are pinned down, and so they're actively fighting. And this is the weird one, because these are the ones where you're driving around doing everything. You can just drive by them, right? You can be in your Warthog driving by, and like, oh, there's some guys pinned down. I'm gonna go get back to them later after I do this outpost, and then meanwhile, an hour or two later, whenever you get around to it, they'll still be pinned down, right? They'll still be surviving, and that's a video game thing, right? So, and those encounters are different because they're on your side, from the get-go. You don't have to free them. They have their weapons in hand, and it's already engaged. Krista, do you have a preference between the two type of encounters? Do you like to save the captured ones or the pinned down ones?
I prefer the pinned down ones because it does feel like you're engaging in an already ongoing battle.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ones where they're captured already is a little bit more boring. I mean, I guess you can let them go early, but then they don't really have any weapons or anything. It's a lot more fun to kind of rescue some pinned down Marines, in my opinion. I think it's just a little more interesting.
Yeah. David, do you have a preference?
Definitely the firefights, because they tend to be in the more interesting areas, and some of them like tell almost mini little stories. Like some, depending on like how you come across them. Like sometimes you come across like a downed pelican that's crashed, and there's a bunch of like UNSC stuff around, and you kind of follow the trail a little bit further, and then you meet them where they're like, obviously they crashed, had to move here, then they held up, and then the enemies attacked them. Like I love those little situations, those kind of environmental stories, and they're real nice, they're really good. Now the same could be said for like crashed Marines captured, but it almost doesn't make sense that you would capture them and then just keep them in the area. So I don't know. I wish there was more to the captured ones, but definitely the firefights are way more interesting, for sure.
Yeah. And it would be fun if they, again, 15, it gets a little monotonous, especially when there's only 2 varieties. If there was another 2, maybe types of encounters, I don't know what they would be, but then it would make it a little bit more interesting to go around. Like, oh, this is this one. Okay, all right, I like how this one's structured. Maybe there's a little puzzle element. I don't know. But they could have made them a little bit more interesting overall. But there are a couple unique ones that we do want to cover. I'll just mention them all. I'll just call out all their names. And then I do want to get your guys' opinion. What's the best squad name? So if you were a Marine in a squad, which one would you want to be on? Okay, I'm going to go through the list now. Cobra Squad, Barracuda Squad, Paladin Squad, Bengal Squad, Jester Squad, I'll stop saying squad, Lancer, Titan, Indiana, Pyramid, Bluebell, Courier, Harpoon, Foxhound, Thunder, and Pronto. Krista, which squad are you on?
I think I would be posted on Jester Squad, definitely.
She would. She's a total Jester. I like Paladin. Paladin's kind of cool.
Paladin's good. Yeah. I kind of like, I like Thunder Squad. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that's the obvious choice. Thunder
It's
Squad.
a good one to say. Courier's a little weird.
Courier's a terrible squad.
also
Nobody
weird.
wants to be on Courier Squad. They're just Uber drivers.
Exactly.
They're
Titan's good.
Yeah, Titan's good. Pronto was weird. That one stood out to me as being an unusual name. Didn't fit the rest.
Yeah.
Harpoon is also good. I also like Harpoon. I like Harpoon.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they're interesting, and it's they're not. I guess it's in line with Halo being, their squad is named kind of in a military theme, but it's not necessarily Alpha Squad, Bravo Squad, Charlie Squad, because those are already FOBs, right? So they have something thematic, but not necessarily in alphabetical order. All right, let us talk about a couple of them. So I guess before I dive into the individual ones, how did you guys do it? So what I did is I went to the north and did all the ones in the north and just kind of I more or less just kind of wrapped around the map, kind of in a counterclockwise manner. Kind of did everything up to the north and then kind of wrapped around and did everything else. Did you guys have a specific order, or did you just shotgun it? Krista?
I kind of just shotgun it. Go to a fob, get all the ones that are close to that fob, move on to the next one.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, originally, obviously, I was trying to get them. The best way to do it is, like you said, get them as you're playing through the game and kind of bounce off.
Yeah.
And then it's easier to take them off in the end. But, like, at certain points, I was like, oh man, I'm hungry for valor. So, like, I go and do a whole bunch of them one after the other. So, yeah, I do it in areas as I kind of move. I think as you kind of enter this area from the bottom. So, I kind of go left and came around the top. And that's kind of how I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like getting Marines for objectives. So, like, I might get a bunch and then go do a main mission, or get a bunch and bring them to an outpost. Like, that, I would do that too. I would, depending on what I wanted to do, I would, like, go and get a bunch of them and then bring them to where I wanted them to be, essentially, depending on my activities.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. Going and then loading them up with special weapons and things like that, just to have that extra firepower. A lot of times you didn't necessarily need it, but a couple of them you did, and I think that's the ones we want to mention. All right, so the Titan Squad is one of them that I felt was memorable. And this is the one, I remember from my first playthrough that I was almost kind of dreading coming back to, because like this was a tough one. So it's on the western side of the map, near the Forge of Tish, and they're captured Marines. And it's like this, the Forerunner pillars have kind of like raised up, and then there's this lower area where like the floor is all like the Forerunner, metal. So they're down in the middle, captured. And then there are a bunch of jackals perched up high. Like it's a pretty big area. There's a bunch of jackals perched up high, and then a bunch of elites and grunts down in the middle. An elite warlord shows up. I don't know if he's there to begin with or he gets dropped off, because there are multiple phantom reinforcements that eventually get dropped in, and then there's a bunch of just kind of debris in the way. So I drove in originally thinking that, these are easy, right? Like I'd already done a couple of the ones previously, wasn't a problem. I just rolled in with my Razorback or my Warthog and just cleaned up, and it was fine. When I did this one originally, and even this time, I drove my Razorback down in the middle. It was like, all right, I'm just gonna go, clean this out. But there are way too many enemies, and there's a jackal snipers up high that are shooting down at you. Even if you clear out them, or if you save the Marines that are there, that's not quite enough firepower to just kind of Rambo it in. I felt like I needed
this one took me off guard.
Yeah. I felt like I needed to, so I died right away. I tried it a couple times. Okay, that's not working. And then I need to go out and clear out the jackals on top, and then kind of just be a lot more methodical in clearing out the area. David, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. This one definitely took me off guard. I thought I was ready for it, and then like way more reinforcements come in than I was expecting, which is kind of strange. Because it feels weird that the captured Marine ones would get reinforcements. You think the one that you're fighting would be the one that's getting reinforcements. It feels like let's reinforce this area where we've captured 4 Marines. Like, who gives a shit? But anyway, go on.
Yeah. Krista, do you remember doing this one? I mean, it's hard. It's 15, but like this one definitely stood out in my mind.
I remember the jackal snipers just fucking me up. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this one you definitely have to be careful. I tried to stay up top as much as possible to take out the jackal snipers, and then I would drop down, because it dropped a bunch of elites and stuff like that.
Yep.
Halfway through, and I left the Marines tied up. I didn't think they deserved it.
Yeah, I found myself, there's some pillars, some Forerunner pillars that are kind of towards the back, and then there's like a cliff. So I did find myself kind of, getting deep in there and then hiding behind those pillars, but the AI is smart enough to come around and chase you. So I would find myself, like engaging with elite, but there's a grunt behind me shooting me. And yeah, there's a lot going on. It's a neat little area, neat little arena to fight, I feel like. So I wish more were like that, where they're more difficult, or maybe like fewer encounters, but more higher difficulty for all of them. All right, let's move on. So I have 4 more. The next one I had listed was Pyramid Squad. And this one is in the southwest corner of the open world area. There's a little section, and this one's actually not connected. So it's like it's its own little, I guess, island, but you can easily reach it, either jump or you can grapple across it. But I don't know, I didn't try, but driving a Razorback or a Warthog didn't necessarily make a ton of sense. So I drove up originally.
Wait. Back that up. didn't make a ton of sense driving a Warthog over a gap, like a canyon where you could possibly die, Colin. That is the only reason why that exists. I do it every time and fail 50% of the time and blow up.
Well, it's because the landmass is like narrow and rocky. So to drive it over there, it would maybe flip, and then you couldn't really maneuver it. You could use the chain gun if you had a Warthog, but that's about it. So that was my rationale.
You're right.
Go
ahead. This area is cool. Like I actually do like this squad. This long, elongated pyramid kind of area where like you're doing a fight and like you come across like, I don't know. It's set up nicely. Like it's a long area. There's loads of weapons around. There's a Warthog over there. The Marines are fighting. I get the impression the Marines are fighting them and they're not taking on the Marines. Here it feels like a weird dynamic, and I like it. It's cool.
Yeah, the thing that got me about this is there's the encounter in the middle, and then the reinforcements come from behind you, whatever direction that is, maybe the northwest of you. So you kind of clear out that area, then you hear the foghorn of the banished phantom, and then it drops a bunch of jackals.
Do it, Krista, do it.
I think jackals, some grunts. Ed, you got it, Krista?
Yeah. No, I just thought the foghorn was funny.
No, are you going to do it for us? Do the foghorn?
That's what I thought you
did. I should make that my text tone.
So the reinforcements are over there. So I think they kind of stay up there too, if I remember correctly. You have to go up there and engage them to finally clear them out. But it ends up being a lot more enemies than you, I guess you think at start. Chris, does this one stand out in your mind at all?
Yeah, I remember on my way to this encounter, I found a chopper, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm going to ride up in a chopper. I'm going to look so awesome. And then I got there, and there was a big hole, and I was like, oh, I guess I can't do that. So I got out and grappled over to the other land, but I thought I had something going there. I thought I was, like, super smart. They foiled my plans like always.
Yep, that happens. Okay, so if I have this one correctly, hold on a second. I feel like I need to look at the map for this just to make sure I have it right. Give me 1 second. Where are the Marines? Hide all. If you haven't checked it out, by the way, there's an interactive map online. It's awesome. It shows you all of the goodies, all of the collectibles, everything. It's mapgenie.io /Halo-Infinite, and it's awesome to use to go around to get all the collectibles, all that sort of stuff. So I've been using this all the time to make my way around and get everything. Here we go. Squad. Is this the Harpoon one? No. I want Harpoon, but where are you, Harpoon? Southeast of Charlie. Okay. Oh, that one. Okay. Yeah, this one. Okay, so Harpoon Squad is the next one that I have on my list. And what I wrote down is they're on a mountain, they're captured, and there's a bunch of jackal snipers, brutes, and grunts in the area. And eventually they will drop in a brute chieftain. So I think if I remember this one correctly, there's a grassy area where you're doing your initial encounters, but it's just the fact that they drop in a brute chieftain, and he's this big badass that you have to take out. That made it a little more memorable than the other ones, where they don't drop in necessarily a heavy unit like that chieftain. David, do you recall this one?
Yeah, I didn't like this one a whole lot. I found this one pretty tough. It took me a couple of goes. I think, especially the first time I did it, I got taken out a lot by the waves of enemies here. I just came at the area totally wrong, and found it quite tough. Found it quite challenging. It's an interesting area though. I like the setup, the big rock in the middle. It's got snipers around it. It's got Bruce down the middle, and they kind of drop in. There's some drop pods here as well too, right? That drop in some reinforcements. Yep. That's how they come in. Yeah.
I think that's where the chieftain comes in. Yep.
Yeah.
Chris, anything to add?
The chieftain kind of stomped me. It was really embarrassing. I try not to think about it.
He did.
Yeah,
he's heavy. He takes a lot of ammo. You gotta shoot him.
Yeah, this one definitely was a little bit more intense than some of the other ones, definitely. It's one of those ones that you don't actually think is going to be intense, and then you're like, oh no.
Right. Yep, definitely. Okay, 2 more to mention. I do have an honorable mention, just another one that I do want to talk about. So Thunder Squad is another one, and this one is inside a cave at the base of the mountain below the Foxhound Squad. So the Foxhound Squad is the other one I want to mention, but I'll circle back to that one. So there's that big, tall mountain to the east side of this landmass. But if you go, there's a cave, and the entrance is kind of, I guess, on the northern face of it. You can get into that cave. There's a jackal in the entrance. There's a grunt in there. There's a couple more jackals as you go in. You find a skewer eventually, but you don't really need it by the time you get to it. So not a ton of resistance, but the fact that these guys are pinned down in this little cave, I thought was interesting. I don't know, David, what are your thoughts on it?
I thought this was real cool. I was kind of disappointed where like there's not a lot of enemies here, and like randomly you feel like this would be way cooler if like this is like an underground tunnel kind of rescue where like you're fighting down into the tunnel, you get to the Marines, and then a wave of enemies comes in and you have to defend the tunnel. I definitely would have done these a little bit differently, I think, because some of them feel like randomly over reinforced, and this one had nothing, and it was like super easy, and I was like, but it was way more interesting of an area to fight in.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I thought, like, give me some, like, if there was a brute chieftain down in the end of the cave in front of those guys, like, if these guys were captured instead of just being pinned down, because, like, these Marines are free, they're, I guess, just hiding in this cave here. But if they were captured and there was a chieftain in front of them, or 2 or something, that would have been way more difficult.
Yeah, but even if, like, yeah.
This one I actually had remembered from my first playthrough as well. There's something about, like, getting there, because the waypoint isn't actually in the cave. It's a little bit away from the cave. So you get there, you're like, where's the encounter? I can't find. And then you see the flare with the red smoke, and you're like, oh shit, this is pretty cool. I like how in the back of the cave, the Marines have obviously stockpiled a bunch of weapons and stuff, so it's almost like a little armory back there, so you can run all the way back and grab some cool gear and then push forward again, or you can just kill them as you see them. But I really liked this one. I tried to get a ghost in there.
Oh, really?
It turned out better than expected, but it wasn't the best, but it was fun.
I got a Warthog way down this tunnel, so I had fun with that.
Okay, so I guess I'll circle back to Foxhound, because that one's at the top of this mountain up here. And this one I definitely didn't do until I had the Wasp my first time around. And it's, you just can kind of hover up and take everybody out with your Wasp. It's not really difficult. But if you don't have a Wasp, it's like this long journey where you have to grapple up the entire mountain and finally get, like, what are these fuckers doing up there? Why are they way up on top of this mountain? There is a crash pelican, which I guess kind of explains it, but meanwhile, it's been, 6 months since that thing has been crashed, most likely. So they're just hanging out up there with actually some decent resistance. There's elites, there's brutes, there's grunts, there's there's an elite ultra that pops up there too. So that is a good encounter as well. It's just kind of a pain in the butt to get up there. The Marines are pinned down, and when I did it, there only one of them survived, and that was it. But I don't know how he was going to get down anyway, because I wasn't. I didn't have no Warthog, no Razorback. You got to get down on your own, buddy. So,
it's a brutal fight.
Does that one ring a bell to you guys?
I vaguely remember it, but they kind of run together. This one doesn't.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, this is one I found randomly exploring. My first playthrough, I remembered it more than anything else, because I was just climbing all the mountains, like looking for everything, and stumbled across this kind of big ass fight. It was really cool. Yeah. I liked the area and the setup. Again, I wish this was more like if this was like an airface or an airfield or some kind of like the reason why we're on this mountain. We're here for not just like a crash pelican thing. If it was just like we're here for a specific reason, like it's got a great vantage point or something. I thought would have been cool, and then would have made sense then why the Banished would like attack it en masse, which they do with the brutal fight too. I only had 1 or 2 guys who ever survived this. It's pretty hardcore.
Yep. All right, last one I want to talk about is the Pronto Squad. And this one is in the southeast corner. It's a little bit isolated. It's not easy to get like a vehicle. You can't really get a vehicle up there at all. Well, you might be able to. I'm sure people have figured it out to get maybe like a mongoose or something up there. But southeast squad, it's kind of near Delta, I guess. So you could call in something over there and bring it over. Again, later in the game, way easier. But they're up on a mountain, and there are two, I think it's just two turrets on the cliffside. So they've been kind of up there, defending this point or using the turrets to, survive. And then there is also I think this is the one where there is a rocket hog, but I don't have it in my notes here, so maybe it's not this one. Anyway, so I thought this was interesting because of the turrets there, and you could use those. You could get up, you have to actually fight through the Banish if you're on foot, fight through the Banish to get to the Marines that are up there, and then you can, put those turrets to use either, on the turrets or yank them off and then go around and kill everybody. David, what do you think about this one?
Had forgotten about it until I looked it up today. I was like, oh my god, this one's really cool. This is a great fight up a hill. The whole area set up crazy amount of reinforcements once again. And I feel like a really unfair amount of reinforcements because like there's some the crazy berserker brutes show up and they just tear through this unit. But they're in a great position. It's a cool little fight.
Yep. Yeah, it's cool just having like the defensible position encounters. I think are the most interesting versus just like being plopped down in the middle of a grassy field. It's where they're actively fighting and they're like set up for the fight, which I think is cool. Kristen, anything to add?
I do really like the ones that are a bit tougher, just because there's more stuff to do. Cause some of these are like, I show up, I kill 3 people, and then I go away.
Right.
So
I get my 30 valor, and then
yeah, just collect my valor. Sometimes they make you work for it. I do enjoy the ones that make you work for it.
Yeah. The one that had the rocket hog, so it's not this one. It's Bluebell Squad has a rocket hog, and that one you end up getting to take down a couple phantoms if you're good with it. So that was good too. So anyway, yeah, there's just too many, and like I said, they kind of all run together to go through them all one by one. But I felt like it was a good idea at least to kind of pull out our favorites from here. I think the theme is more difficult, more more interesting. Maybe puzzles would have made everything a lot more just memorable and more interesting.
I could definitely write my own and make this way better. But I will say special shout out to, we mocked it earlier, Courier Squad. I really like that one. It's the one that's right on a Crash Pelican. It's near the kind of it's near the early first area of the base first area when you come onto this landmass near Fob Echo, yeah. And it's got like that really weird kind of Forerunner semicircle structure that kind of comes out of a mountain near it. And then there's like a Crash Pelican. There's like loads of special weapons there. It is a big squad of Marines fighting here. And then I always go here and just stock up on these dudes and just bring a Razorback, get all the special weapons, rally up, and then bring them all around here to like all the other areas. So like it's fun where it's like it's a whole bunch of Marines well stocked in an easy area. You can bring vehicles and then do a load of stuff with them. So in all of my playthrough and all of my games, I go to Courier. I pick them up straight away and I bring them around. So cool. Just special shout out to them. I like their setup and their situation. It's quite useful.
Good. You can get to them pretty quickly after the tower, is what you're saying, right?
Oh yeah,
like you can drive across, straight away. You go load them up. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because once you save them, then they're gone. They don't. You can't go back to that area and they're there anymore. They've gone to wherever they go afterwards. That's cool. Yeah, I like that structure. I know exactly what you're talking about. That semicircle with like the buttresses or whatever those things are holding that thing up. Yeah, super cool. And that was the other thing I noticed a lot when I was driving around is like there's a lot of cool structures that are here in this this landmass Forerunner stuff that you don't use at all. Like they don't do anything. They're just cool. So I think that is something that they could maybe add to the game down the road. Maybe there's a weird like door that opens that you can go down into a dungeon and some other stuff happens down there.
Dungeon.
Dun dun dun. Okie dokes. Let's move on from those guys. So like I mentioned before, do everything, do all the propaganda towers, and then you can get your Scorpion. You can roll around. I guess you can go to the next mission with the Scorpion, but it's not that great. And then use it perhaps later in the game if you want to. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh, we have the Forerunner artifacts. So our installations, there are 2 of them. Why don't we do, well, we'll cover them and then we'll read the audio logs or listen to the audio logs now instead of doing it at the end. So we have 2 of them. The first one is in the north, and I thought this one was cool. There's like a pond, and you can get there a number of different ways. It's kind of in the middle. It's just southeast, I guess, of Outpost Termonius, aka the Reverie. There's a pond with one of the the circle in Forerunner structures, and then you can go up to that and play an audio log. I really like that setting, like just having that pond thing in the middle and just this open area. There's a couple different squads of banished in the area. Super cool area, super cool site. That one is called Artifact 2, which again, I don't understand the numbering of them, but we've already listened to the first 2 audio logs. So we will play for you the 3rd audio log right now.
As I explore this world, I find answers that only seem to exist to pose new questions. One thing is certain. This installation was built differently than the others. A myriad of Reformation spires can be deployed. Indeed, have been deployed when requested. To complete the circle. To ensure its inhabitants are preserved. Or perhaps I should say, detained.
David, what do you think she's saying? What's she alluding to? This is weird.
This is really interesting, and yeah, no, but like this game teases.
It's always the flood.
Yeah, this game teases the not flood, and like I don't think at any stage we're like, is it the flood? It's not the flood, but it's kind of building up. I guess to where we are in the game now, we know that there's another race, there's another thing happening that this ring is for, and this is kind of hinting that it's like a race. That it's like like they said, to ensure its inhabitants are preserved, or perhaps I should say detained, because the Spawn Empire seems to be like investigating the history of this ring, and like discovering different things and different reasons, being like totally fascinated. I wish there was way more to this whole kind of storyline than these just kind of little pieces, drip feed pieces we get. But it's cool. It's building up a good story, for sure. The mystery of Zeta Halo.
Krista?
I know exactly who they're talking about. I beat the game. It's definitely very mysterious when you first hear it and you don't know what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's part of the struggle. I think we've probably talked about it before, is there's things that become more interesting after you beat the game. So a lot of these teasers are like, oh, cool, but I don't know what that means. And then when you're done with the game, you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly what that means. Neat. Something I'll say about this one specifically too is it talks about, and I think aren't all rings this way. It's more or less saying like this ring has to be rebuilt. Like it's gonna rebuild itself no matter what, because it's trying to detain what's on this ring. Aren't all rings essentially? Don't they all rebuild themselves, or is that unique to Zeta?
That's what I would have thought that it
was
could have.
I guess they all rebuilt themselves, but Zeta had to be completely rebuilt because of the damage it took. Zeta was a much bigger Halo at one point. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if she's alluding to that, because the ring literally had to, like, get rid of some of its pieces and then, like, get smaller.
Was it the
in one of the books?
I forget. The first one? Or is it
the Neoteric Array is the first one, I believe, and the Senescent Array is the current one.
Right.
So, it used to be a part of the original ring system, and now it's part of this one because they're like, yeah, we can't build another one. Let's just retrofit this old broken one.
Right. Exactly. All right, the other one, number 2, the second Forerunner ring thingy, which is actually named Artifact 1, is on a mountain near Harpoon Squad. And we talked about Harpoon Squad too. So there's that one. We'll play the audio for that now.
Assuredly, many before me have observed these crumbling artifacts, gazed at the landscape in which they sit. How do they feel? There is so much here that I would assume was interpreted as beauty. But perhaps not. What are these relics to the past? Are they a celebration? Or a warning? Symbols of hope, or something darker?
This one's talking about the actual ring thingies, right? Like the
That's
actual
what I
structure.
think so. Yeah.
And
'Cause
so
they're
it's interesting
crumbling.
because Despondent Pyre was selected along with the other Forerunner or the other installation monitors after the installations were built, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
she was dropped onto this installation. It was already a thing, and she's trying to get familiar with it. She's trying to figure it out, and she comes across these things, but it's not clear or it's not told to her what they're for.
Well, you also have to remember that the monitors have, had to go through serious compartmentalization of their minds and Forerunner knowledge in order to become monitors, so that they don't know too much about what's going on, that if they were captured by the Flood would be able to take that information out of them.
Yeah, and no access
So
to
the
the domain
monitors-
either.
Yeah, so the monitors actually aren't the most knowledgeable about Forerunner stuff than we might assume. I mean, of course, they knew more about the Forerunner stuff than humanity initially did, but I feel like at this point, we probably know more than the monitors know, just in general.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, so more mysteries to be unfolded. That was the fourth of 7, so we'll keep covering those as we find more of those. All right, let's talk about some Easter eggs. How about it?
Ooh.
A couple Easter eggs. Krista, do you have a favorite Easter egg? There's a couple major ones, and then there's a bunch of plushies to find, more or less.
I stumbled upon one of the plushies. I think it was the Arbiter one. I don't remember what section it was in, but I did stumble upon one. It was like at the top of a hill. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Huh.
He's in the detached area.
Oh, yeah.
Where you find one of the skulls.
Yeah.
North.
The plushies are cute. They've kind of been around since, Halo Reach-ish? That's when they added the plushies to the Halo CE maps. No, I like them. They're really cute. I don't know if there's one in this section, but there's a bunch of different little arcade machines sprinkled throughout Halo Infinite that are also really cool that I appreciate. I appreciate those as well.
Yeah, we talked about one from right around Outpost Harmonious. There's a cave. It turns
Yeah.
into an arcade system.
Love it.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
David, anything you want to mention?
I
Any
found them.
faves?
No, the Easter eggs in this not particularly. There's a bunch of plushies I found exploring. I was kind of weirded out that there was no achievements for them. I kind of expected them there
Yeah,
would
I was
be.
kind of thinking that. Like, what does this do?
Yeah.
Does it do something if I shoot it? Like, what
Yeah.
is this doing here?
I always punch them and
Can I
shoot
get some
them
valor?
and wait for something to pop. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really happens.
No. There are a bunch of them. So there's a weapon, there's an arbiter, there is, what else do we have? A librarian, an atriox, that one's my favorite. There's a grunt, Echo 216, and there's a GRD. What's GRD? Is it just like maybe a type of armor? I'm looking at an image of it. It just kind of looks like it's got a special helmet or something like that. But anyway, go find those. They're fun little things to find because Halo has fun things to find. There are also two major Easter eggs. There's the Scorpion gun. Krista, have you done this one yet?
No, what is it?
The Scorpion gun. So we already missed it because we already did the mission. After we did the mission, it goes away. But it's tied to Outpost Harmonious. So when you go around and push the red buttons to do the airstrike that David was talking about?
Yeah.
So near, I guess, the button that's closest to the landing pad, there's like a anti-air gun on I guess it's the Reverie. So you go up to that, and you kind of go up to the barrel, and it gives you a prompt to pick up the gun, but you don't see anything. So you hit the button, you drop whatever weapon you had in that place, and the weapon you have, even though it's invisible to you, is a Scorpion cannon. and it has unlimited ammo. I think you do get a reticle. I think you do get a reticle. You can't actually see the gun. You get a reticle, You have unlimited ammo. You can take it with you the rest of the game.
What?
Yep.
Oh, I need to do that. You should
Crazy.
do
You
it.
never knew
Maybe
this
that
existed.
would be good for Legendary.
I have to say, though,
It's perfect for
kinda
Legendary.
it's kind of disappointing they didn't animate a gun here. Because, like, the Scorpion gun was like a
Yeah.
plasma pistol. I mean, why wouldn't they just give you a sidekick or something just and have it shoot? I don't know. Feels kind of a missed thing.
Oh, the
I feel
Scarab
they
gun, you
should've-
mean?
Yeah, the Scarab gun. Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it was a glitch that somebody put in there and maybe they didn't take it out during the last final playtesting or whatnot, but it's a fun thing. It would have been cool to see, something physical. But this thing just wrecks shop. You can essentially just go, 2-shot bosses, everything else is done. You do move slower, and so you have to flip to your other weapon to do certain things. I don't think you can grapple shot or anything like that. So you have to switch to your other weapon, but meanwhile it's always there with you for the rest of the game. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So definitely check that out. You can only do that during the Outpost Harmonious mission. If we've already gone through and cleared that mission, it's not there anymore. Apparently, it wipes after that point. So go do it. Go start a new playthrough and then have some fun with that. The other one is the sandwich. Sandwich is good. I feel like the sandwich must have been a late ad after, because there was remember the demo, or what did we have access to early? It was the multiplayer firing range.
Mm-hmm.
We had access to that early, and someone, and I remember seeing it, but you kind of go through the academy, the Johnson's Academy, right? You can walk through up into the firing range. There's a sandwich on a table, and I think there was a little social media, buzz about it during the time. So what they did is they paid homage to that sandwich, and they hid it in this cave. Up in the ceiling of this cave. You have to just kind of get lucky and be grappling around to actually get to it. It's the cave that is nearby one of the Spartan cores. So you can actually access this cave a couple of different ways. Actually, through kind of the lower right of the map, there's a warthog parked next to a cave. You can go through there and you can get to this area that opens wide. There's a bunch of grunts and some brutes and things like that just kind of hanging out there. A couple jackals. There's a Forerunner door. You go through the Forerunner door, and there is a couple enemies. There is a chieftain in there, so you got to deal with him. And then on the other side of the chieftain, right next to the cliff, an opening to the cliff, is a Spartan core. So you can grab that. You can also scale down the side of the mountain the other way and get in through that little hole there. So there's 2 ways to access it. But then if you go back into the main room, there's just a random hole in a random area of the ceiling that you can grapple up into. It's really small and tiny to see. But once you grapple up into there, then there's this giant sandwich and a bunch of grunts that are, I guess, statue grunts. You can't do anything to them. They're just looks like they're dancing and frolicking around this giant sandwich. It's very good. Very good. Those are the major ones that we know of, I guess. I'm sure there are others out there. But those are the fun ones. Let's see here. We didn't cover the skulls yet. There are 2 skulls. There is the Ketch skull and the Fog skull. The Ketch skull is in that detached northern landmass, and I already mentioned it in one of the previous episodes. But there are you finally get up there. You're crawling around. You're what is in this area? There's nothing. There's a high value target, and that's pretty much it. A couple of these Easter eggs, but you also have the Ketch skull. It's being guarded by 2 hunters in this valley. This it's the crotch of this mountain that you go into. So you can go up high and drop down into it, or you can enter down low. But there's 2 hunters to deal with, and they're a pain in the ass. David, do you recall this encounter at all?
This skull at the very top. Yeah, the one you're thinking of. Yeah. I did all the skulls in one big kind of wasp run of just bouncing between.
Oh yeah,
between
easier
them all.
than
So
Wasp.
yeah, I thought well, these guys blew up my wasp. So I took out one and then had to crash land and then take out the other foot. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, it's the skulls are weird in this game. I don't know, they're cool. Each one is a weird little situation.
Yeah, and they this one was on a pillar too, which is kind of cool. They're maybe, I don't know, worshiping it or something like that.
Yeah.
I do like
yeah.
how there's some in the open world area, which makes total sense, but then also some in the missions still for you to find.
Mm-hmm.
Krista, any thoughts on this one?
I haven't actually gone through and got the skulls.
Oh, you haven't got them yet? Okay,
No.
saving them. I respect that. Save them for another play. So you're not the 100% hunter, huh?
No, I'm very close in my first playthrough, but I just haven't sat down and gone through the game to get them.
I gotcha. The next one is pretty interesting. Fog. So it's near the librarian doll. It's on the, let's see, kind of on the western side of the map. South of where the Mission Foundation is, southeast, I guess, of that. But you can climb it. This is another one for the Wasp that I cleaned up all the skulls after I'd beat the game and I had the Wasp. But you can go and use your Wasp, and there's like a little, just kind of a little hole in the side of the Forerunner pillars that you can fly into. There's no enemies there, but there you can also grapple around and get to it too. But there is just like a pile of helmets right next to it. Like there's a Banished Chieftain helmet, and there's Marine helmets and a couple other Brute helmets, and then you have the Fog Skull right there. So you snag that, and they all have that kind of eerie sound as well. So grab those two things. The Catch Skull it says enemies throw and drop more grenades, and the Fog disables your motion tracker. So there you go. All right, I think we did it. I think we covered everything. Whew, there's a lot in this open world area. I guess it's good that it gives you all this stuff to do early while you're kind of still trying to figure out the story, and there's this giant landmass and you're getting the Valor and all that sort of stuff. So there's lots to explore, but at the same time, I had to come back and do it because I was mainlining the story. I didn't do all this sort of stuff, which I know is different than what you guys did.
For sure. I appreciate that the missions have like set endpoints that you can kind of just bounce out and go do more exploring and come back again. I like that. Even if it is like, it could be like 20 hours I could have spent in this game in between main missions, which is kind of ridiculous. But I appreciate that they let you do that. If you want to just go and get more Valor, get different weapons, build up your fobs. I like that. It's cool.
Yeah, and the terrain, I feel like the terrain, although people complain about it's, being just one type of biome, right? Like the terrain is cool. Like driving through certain valleys I thought was neat, and like the mountainsides, I think it's all really well done. It feels like this unique area, and it's not boring. Lots to do, lots of highs, lots of lows, places to climb. So I think this area is interesting. And then there's also that ominous, weird Forerunner thing off to the east that's got like lightning, and you can't access it. There's like something over there, and like a building way down there, and maybe I'll go down over there. And then on the other side, there's a crashed Guardian that you can see off in the distance. So there's lots of interesting things to look at as you're exploring. All right, should we wrap it up and do some community stuff?
We can.
All right, let's do it. Krista, I haven't heard your voice much. You go first.
All right, here we go. Yeah. So Colin, February 22nd, 2022, 3:32 p.m. Add an Easter egg to Halo Infinite. What is it and where do you find it? Question for Mission Debrief, Halo Infinite, Connections, Distress Calls, and Easter Eggs episode. So, your mama says the Slipspace Cave, containing random items from books that haven't shown up in the games, and the bodies of Noble Six and George, who are very much dead. Jedi Spartan 38 says an Easter egg where, if you grapple melee to get below the map, you'll find Mendicant Bias's core and the statue of the Primordial. Very cool. I'd like to see Mendicant Bias. I don't know what that guy's doing, but he's not in the games. I paid to see Dad says a lovely little friend, a flood infection form infecting a dead brute that you can kill with a nice bottle of Flood Away, as well as a reference to the Forerunner Palace of Pain, Mendicant Bias, and the Primordial to add to the mystery of Installation 07 and how Mendicant Bias is a prick. It can be found in the bowels of the ring, or at least an obscure cave with no significance whatsoever. Solo Kale says an Easter egg where, in the Command Spire, an imprint of 343 to remember the sub-monitor will probably betray you, located in the room where you find the sub-monitor. More 343 Guilty Spark stuff would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm in.
The Pesky Bird says, buttons triggering a new pair of brutes to drop pod on the first AA gun. One of them will have Craig's face and no hair. He will not attack, but instead act like a Marine.
I like
you
that.
can get
He's entertaining.
Marine Craig.
Yeah.
Matt says, a waterfall with a cave behind it and the CE pistol in it, but it's empty. Unlocks an achievement called Keys.
Nice.
I don't keep it loaded. And that looks like it's about it.
Awesome. Thank you,
It was-
Discords.
It was appropriate. I'm really surprised.
Yeah, those are pretty good, actually.
Yeah. I didn't get skin crawlies. Listen to that one.
King
All right.
All right, Facebook. We
Facebook.
have Colin Perkins, admin, February 22nd at 8:29 p.m. Add an Easter egg to Halo Infinite. What is it and where can you find it? Question from Mission Debrief, Halo Infinite, connections, distress calls, and Easter eggs episode. Picture of a big ass sandwich. Good stuff. Okay, we got a bunch of these in here. Thomas, a guy we know, in a cave on the ring, you can find the helmets of Blue Team and Osiris lined up on a wall. Shocker.
Oh. Ouch.
Lucas says, there are 9 quotes from the mainline Halo games on walls throughout the game. Once you find all of them, Yap Yap the Destroyer will spawn near you. Defeating him will drop a variety of OP weapons with unlimited ammo, including CE Magnum, Scarab Gun from Halo 2, and Sergeant Johnson's Spartan Laser. That's crazy. I like it.
Hell yeah.
I like it.
Luke says, I can't think of one to add, but I thought this was pretty cool. And it's a picture of the arcade machine, which I think is pretty cool.
Nice.
I've still never seen any of these. Dickie says, a giant Halo CE assault rifle with a bottomless clip, and when Chief finds it, he goes, a weapon, nice. Mission accomplished. Then roll credits. Thought it was pretty funny. Nick says, I was shocked at how quickly people found this one. I don't know what that is. Shocked. I don't know what that is. Okay.
Probably about the sandwich.
Maybe. Luke says, on top of the highest peak in the Halo Infinite map, I would put Captain Keyes, Miranda Keyes, and Sergeant Johnson all sitting down having a coffee. They would randomly cycle through some of their famous lines from the series. Clyde, how about an Easter egg where you come to a clearing in some dense trees to find a crashed Combat Evolved Covenant dropship with like 2 dead grunts and a blue spatter on the ground? As you investigate, 3 more CE grunts and a blue CE elite run out and open fire screaming wah, wart. Killing them grants you 1 and only 1 CE plasma rifle to be found in the game. That's kind of cool. I like the CE stuff. That would be pretty nice. John D says, Craig the Brood playing an electric guitar tucked up away somewhere like on tour posters on top of the tower. Matt just puts a picture of Halo 3 Rat. And I think that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And that's it. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for all the responses. I like the roll credits. It makes me think of, I played a Far Cry 6 fairly recently. I haven't beat it, but there's a point in the game where you can make a decision, and you it's like, obviously you make the decision and you're going somewhere else. You're not going to do the story. And so I did that, and it gave me a little cutscene after I did that, and then it rolled credits, and I was like maybe 3 hours into the game. It was amazing.
Hell yeah.
That's like a Far Cry
speedrun that
thing.
shit.
Yeah, they've done that in a bunch of their
it is?
games.
Okay.
Yeah, where like
Yeah.
there's like the start of like Far Cry 4, like the main boss comes up to you and tells you like, hey, just like stay there, and if you like don't stay there, or if you do something else, the game like ends immediately. Like literally at like 10 minutes into the game, you can just end the game by like not participating, and getting killed. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good. I would it'd be interesting to see how Halo would do that, right? Like what decision would you make to then let them roll credits on you? It'd be fun.
You don't take the weapon.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. That could be it. And then you just die right away. All right, that will do it for a debriefing of the distress calls and Easter eggs located in the connections area of Halo Infinite. On the next episode, we'll be playing a real mission again.
Oh,
Excavation site. Send us your thoughts at podcastevolved@gmail.com or drop us a tweet at podcastevolved on Twitter. You can also support the show by visiting Evolved on Patreon. Until next time, Evolved.
evolve.
Evolved!